Thank you, Jade. It's really exciting actually to get to be a speaker, just at least to launch the event. And usually I'm just the MC and I go behind a blank screen right about now. This is something that's really important to me. This is one of my favorite events of the year. Outside of Austin Forum, I'm super active in the community and it's always been a value of mine. So I'm thrilled to get to introduce these panelists and share a little bit about why we're doing this event. So a little bit of context. So we lived in the agrarian age for millennia of farming and living off the land. Then came the Industrial Revolution, which lasted for hundreds of years. And really, when we think about, we're the Austin Forum on Technology and Society, technology in society is a much newer thing, really not that old. And yet it has made a huge difference already in the world and how we live our lives and us being together right now. I mean, look at just this, the history of cell phones. There are plenty of us who are on the phone, probably some of us who have never been in a world where there weren't cell phones, but definitely people on the call right now who remember getting the first cell phone, which looked like the one on the far left, or maybe even bigger or bulkier than that. And in the last, 30, 50 years, technology has exploded so much, and we're going to talk a lot about, we talk about that all year, and then different ways tonight. And by the numbers, it had a huge impact on our world. In 2019 alone, in the US tech industry had 12.1 million employees, and the economic impact, by one quote, I saw it at 1.9 billion in the US. I saw another one that said the economic impact was actually in the trillions. So the impact of technology and techies and technologists has been immense, and I don't want to use that word unprecedented, but that was the word that was about to come out of my mouth. It has been enormous and unforeseen. But it's not all been good. Not the increase of technology has also brought an increase of challenges in the world. One of them, as we know, and our speaker Maya will speak about at closing up the event, is the digital divide. It's also caused huge changes in pay structures and how people being able to be very abundant and then sort of illuminated challenges in our society. And so that's what tonight's event and what I'm really passionate about is tonight's event brings us through the conversation of what can we do. We're going to look at the conversation tonight through various different lenses of technology and social good and technology and making an impact. We're going to look at it first from if you work for a big company, what can you do working for a big technology company or really any big company, and what can you do to make a difference in the world and have a positive impact? We're going to look at it as a scrappy technology company, how can you use AI and other technologies for good and what's the impact? We're going to look at it through the lens of from a startup founder and using technology to solve social issues in your community, and then also as humans what we can do to bridge the digital divide. So we have amazing speakers tonight going to be talking about a whole world and many different ways to look at this. But I put this slide up because I want you, if you're in the proverbial room with us tonight, there are things I want you to think about, and two things in particular, how I want you to listen to tonight's event in two specific lenses, two specific frames. The first one is potential. I want you for a moment to think about your own potential. I want you to think about what you think you are capable of, we have incredible people who sign into these calls and who join us, who are CEOs and founders. But if you're that, or you're working, or you're in between, I want you to think of what are you actually capable of? And then I want you to also to think of what is the impact you could be making? Even if you've started something amazing, like what is that gap? What impact could you be making? And I want you to just think about it for a moment. And then I also want you to think about potential, and I want you to think about legacy. What is the legacy you will leave behind? 2020 has been quite the year, and it's been the year that's had us sort of deal with our own mortality. And I know that that's an interesting thing to start this conversation with, but as we talk about tech and social impact and all the things that we can use technology, I want you to make tonight's conversation really personal to you. I want you to think about what you could be doing, what you can learn from this, what you can take away, and what you want your legacy to be in making an impact on the world. So with all that, I'm very excited to introduce our first speaker of the night, the Director of Corporate Responsibility at A&D, Justin Murrell. So Justin Murrell, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you everybody for having me. I'm very excited to be with you all tonight virtually. I wish we could be in person, but this is the next best thing. So thank you so much, Jay and Jessica and everybody that helped organize this event. I'm looking forward to sharing with you a perspective from a multinational company, a technology company, and some of the things that we are doing around the world, but also here in Austin to partner with our employees and our suppliers and our customers and communities to really deliver the most positive impact that we can. And so I'm going to share with you a few slides here that kind of tells that story from a certain kind of lens. And so the people, planet, purpose is that lens. And this is the lens that we use to make sense of some of the various corporate responsibility issues that are facing multinational companies. And when you kind of dive into that, you'll see a few layers here. So the first thing I want to do is introduce AMD as a company. So for those that don't know, we're a global semiconductor design company. We're got about over 12,000 employees around the world. We have a large presence here in Austin, and we design the microprocessors that go into a lot of the devices that millions of people use every day, from game consoles to VR headsets to laptops and desktops, all the way up to servers and supercomputers. And we believe that high performance computing has enormous potential to transform the world for the better in terms of how people live, work, and play every single day. And when we look at people and planet purpose, we see that it really does span the various issues that face companies such as ours. And it looks at the whole value chain. So not just at the office or what you sell, but how it's made, the partners that you work with. So it's a very broad set of issues that requires a lot of prioritization, and our employees are really important partners in various pieces of that puzzle. So I'm going to walk you through each of those three. For people, really what this starts, and it was part of our founding kind of creed, was people first, products and profit will follow. And that is true today as it ever was. And it really starts with, at the beginning, when you go all the way to the beginning of the supply chain and how are workers treated, and making sure that is done with dignity and respect in the supply chain. And we do that with our customers, our other industry partners, and our employees to help make sure that what is referred to as the Responsible Business Alliance, it's a broad code of conduct, and that we bring that to the supply chain. But then when you get to work every day and you're part of this, we want to make sure that our 12,000 plus employees are bringing their whole selves to work, right? That idea of different perspectives and inclusiveness really drives innovation, which is critical for any technology company. So that piece of two key ways that we do it is volunteerism and employee resource groups. So you can see some of the metrics here for volunteerism impacts. These are really inspiring and incredible to see what our employees are doing. And when you're a large company, being able to wield the passion of employees to go out and make a positive impact in the community can really, really add up. And it's also has a business value. And that's really a key theme that ties across all these issues, right? That they deliver a value to the business. And in this case, it's around the correlation around the engagement of employees and the volunteerism, and feeling like they can make a difference when they show up to work. And another key way that employees can make a difference is through employee resource groups. We all have areas of passion and interests and want to bring that to the office place. And we have these employee resource groups where these employees can share ideas, they can come up with projects, they can do initiatives out in the community that tie their passion and interest to what's happening around them. So employee resource groups is another great way that we are able to advance our priorities around people. And for planet, this is, again, across all the different aspects of our business, from supply chain to operations to products. But I'm going to focus on what our employees are helping us with. So you can see on the left some of those statistics that are part of our global efforts. And on the right, you'll see, for some of our employees here, just locally, for example, around designing energy efficient processors. That's a great way that people can make a difference on this, and all the way from the products that they're designing to the offices that they're in around green team initiatives. We have everything from a bring your own mug to park cleanups. So all creative ways to feel like we're making a difference as individuals and as an office place, and then collectively globally. And when you think about it, even a step further, how do we get to work? Commuting every day, right? When you have 12,000 plus employees commuting every day, that's something that matters. And to encourage and incentivize alternative transportation, things like ride sharing, not doing a lot of that these days, but electric vehicle charging stations, cycling to work. These are all ways that help people get to work, feel good about it when they get there, be motivated. And then all the way to the home. What do we do at home also makes a difference. And so one way we've just been able to connect that is through an employee home solar program. So those things all come together to make a culture of conservation and sustainability that span our business here and abroad. And then, purpose. This is where it all really comes together. When the idea of being able to create technology that is going to help tackle global challenges is just really inspiring for our engineers, from everything from education and STEM to medical imaging, improving what doctors can do around that, to research and scientific research. It's just amazing what these brilliant minds can do when they're given high performance computing in terms of helping tackle these challenges. And clearly there's, one of the biggest challenges obviously facing our world today is COVID-19 pandemic. And so when this, back in April, early on in the pandemic, our CEO stepped forward and said, we are going to donate $15 million worth of our high performance computing technology to research institutions that are working on COVID-19. And so that's in terms of solutions to this just enormous challenge, right? From vaccines to therapies. So that has been amazing to see as these are now rolling out this technology to our partners, including University of Texas and Texas State and Rice University here locally, that and over 20 organizations globally are able to break barriers, do things that they weren't able to do before with really high performance computing. So that's exciting. That is fulfilling for our employees, to tying together what we make every day and how does that help the world is an incredibly important connection to make. And then I'll close with a few specific things here in Austin that we're doing. And this really ties together the people, planet, and purpose, all brings it kind of home to our local community here. And it looks like a few different things. You could look at grants that go to local nonprofits each year. You can look at, we hold an annual day of service. It's actually not a day, it's more like a month, but we get everybody together and mobilized and excited about going out and making a difference in their communities. And it's here in Austin, it led to over 3,000 hours last year. And of course, interestingly, not a whole lot of volunteering out in the community right now, but we've found ways to do it. Innovation will always help find a way, right? So now we're looking at we've held several volunteer career events with students from Breakthrough Central Texas, KIPP schools, and Girls Start. So it's still a way that we can get our employees engaged and help them feel like they're giving back even in this virtual environment. And one of the things I loved about this Central Texas Food Bank event was our employees love to build, create, design. So they did a can instruction, where they got over 9,000 meals together from this event where it was a team building event. And we've seen a lot of another business value. You get teams working to solve challenges. It's not on a product, it's on a community challenge. And you're doing something that helps build camaraderie and comes up with something valuable for our communities. And then the last one, I love the story. It's one of our learning labs. So we have a couple of these around the world. The one here in Austin is with the Ann Richards School for Young Women Leaders. And it's equipping, a high performance computing lab to allow these students to do things that they weren't able to do before, from coding to game design, you name it. But it's really exciting to see when you can help build that future of person who will be maybe interested in semiconductors or technology in general, and what are they going to be able to accomplish with what they have to work with then. So it's sort of paying it forward in a way, and I think that's kind of a theme that I would like to close with, is this idea of paying it forward, giving it back to our communities in a way that is meaningful, it's authentic, and it builds value within the company, cultural value, innovation value, all the way to partnerships and collaboration value. So getting back to Jessica's opening point around potential, I see enormous potential by us all tapping into those creative ways that we can do a little bit more and break through our own barriers to come up with innovative ways to make a positive impact in our society, whether it's volunteerism, it's diversity and inclusion programs, it's environmental sustainability or supply chain responsibility, employee matching, donating products. These are all ways that we can really add value to our local community and bring positive impact through technology. So with that, I'll give it back to you, Jessica. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll be here looking forward to hearing all the other great speakers.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. And it's inspiring. So hold on, I want to see the slides for a second, because those are huge. Donating over 3,000 hours, and some of the impact slides, like that's a huge impact that AMD is able to make. And if we think about using this as an example of other organizations, taking it on, 3,000 volunteers, 15,000, 160 service projects, 61,000 raised for charities, 15,000, like that's a lot of hours, time, talent, and treasure. So that's really awesome. Thank you for sharing. And it would just be so amazing if every organization took that seriously and took it on. So thank you.
Thank you.
So shifting now from what you can do as a big company and employing volunteerism and things like that, we will now bring on our amazing organization, Kung Fu AI, our chief scientist, Dr. Steve Kramer, talking about technology in particular, how we can use it. I kept thinking about this when I was writing this, like for good and not for evil, because AI can be used for some evil too, let's be honest, but it can also be used for good. So Steve, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation to speak tonight. So my name is Steve Kramer. I was born and raised in Los Alamos, New Mexico, hence the whole physics thing. And I did my PhD at UT Austin, finished way back end of 1992. So, but I've had the good fortune of being able to join a company called Kung Fu AI, joined back in mid-January. And just really delighted to have this opportunity to share some of the things that we are doing related to AI for good that really lines up well with a lot of the goals for tonight's sessions. So just very briefly, want to talk about our vision, mission, and values, talk about our current external outreach efforts, in particular, talk about the things that we have going on specifically related to AI and ethics. I will share some about my disinformation research that I've been doing for many years, but some stuff that's relevant to 2020. And then, of course, wrap it up with some calls to action or invitations for folks who are interested to join us in one or more volunteer opportunities. So Kung Fu AI is a small AI consultancy based here in Austin. We're just a little bit under 30 folks now. And all of our AI for Good initiatives are really rooted in our vision, mission, and values. And I really just kind of focus on the first two here. The vision is to elevate the best parts of humanity and to deliver the thoughtful, creative, and scientific application of AI that works. We really want to provide value to our customers, and we want to be able to do that in such a way that we can feel good about the work that we're doing. And what I really greatly appreciate is the fact that the leadership of Kung Fu AI is committed to really supporting and encouraging our work and our pro bono kinds of initiatives related to AI for Good. So we have a number of external outreach efforts. First of all, we have certainly since I joined back in January, I think even before that, we do hold monthly AI for Good office hours. And these are basically both for people who are seeking help on AI machine learning kinds of projects, as well as for volunteers who have some capability and some interest in donating time in order to help. And we can help with doing that kind of matchmaking. And so the easiest way to get connected there is just to go to kungfu.ai and reaching out under the Contact Us part of the website there. We also have several ongoing pro bono collaborations underway. The first is a nonprofit called Rainforest Connection. And there, one of our machine learning engineers, Max Varian, is focused on building out supervised and self-supervised audio modeling kinds of solutions in order to try to detect gunshots in the rainforest. The thought there, I believe, one of the main focuses is that those could be associated with poachers who are illegally hunting in the rainforest. And then the other two ones that I want to talk about are Measure Austin. So Measure is an Austin nonprofit, and their goal is to use data and education to mobilize communities to eliminate social disparities. So really inspiring nonprofit there. And then we also have several initiatives underway with Houston Tillotson University. As part of our overall corporate objective, we are really also committed to trying to do our part to address social and racial inequities and try to actively come up with solutions by working with people across lots of different parts of the community to help address those key challenges. So in terms of Measure, so we really, I do want to shout out that the original connection came from a meeting with the Austin Forum event where Mimi Stiles presented her work. And Mimi is the founder and executive director of Measure. And so far, our initial efforts have really been focused on data consolidation from new nonprofit consultations. So basically, nonprofits that need help from Measure submit information. And so we're trying to help in terms of coming up with more efficient ways of understanding all of that information. We're also doing what we can in terms of helping on the fundraising front. And towards that end, we filmed, we worked with the Measure leadership to film a call to action video that was released. So of course, we'll be sharing our slides here. It's also been, if you look at Kung Fu AI on LinkedIn, we've posted the link there as well. So really, if you have a chance, like I said, it's about a 13-minute video, really compelling summary of the great work that they are doing. And we're looking forward to really continuing and expanding that partnership and continue to do what we can help with that important work that Measure does. In terms of Houston Tillotson, we have an academic collaboration with Dr. Messino and her group with a research methods seminar module. So one of our machine learning engineers, Jeffrey Gleason, put together a research module, case study with some code as well. And they've rolled that out. I believe that's going to be, available on an ongoing basis. So that's more on the AI and machine learning front. Then also, Stephen Strauss, who's our managing director, he is coordinating a 5-part entrepreneurship series for students at Houston Tillotson as well. So we're hoping that by both providing some value on the AI and machine learning front, as well as on the business and entrepreneurship, that we can really provide a pretty holistic set of support to Houston Tillotson students. And specifically, we're also trying to really increase our diversity and inclusion efforts as well at Kung Fu AI. So I know that we are making concerted efforts to recruit machine learning engineering interns from Houston Tillotson students. Another important area that we're really very, very passionate about at Kung Fu AI is ethics and AI kinds of initiatives. In particular, even when we decide to pursue or accept work on potential AI projects, we're still trying to formalize the process, but we do have basically ethics meetings every week. We have a company meeting Wednesday morning, and we follow that by a culture and an ethics discussion. And if there are any potential projects that are on the horizon where we feel that they might be in a kind of a gray area, then we go through this, we open it up for discussion, and basically get the opinions of everyone across the company. We invite everyone to provide input and feedback and voice any concerns. So just to give you a couple examples there, I know that we have certainly declined, and we do decline any kind of offensive military projects. We also recently have taken something called the Safe Face Pledge to avoid any facial recognition projects. As folks are probably well aware, a lot of those systems are inherently, based on the way in which they were trained, are inherently biased against racial minorities. And of course, beyond that, in addition to those shortcomings, there are just lots of privacy concerns, valid privacy concerns that really led us to take that Safe Face Pledge. So linked there, we actually have a blog post about the sort of the decision-making process and actually how we decided to not only take the Safe Face Pledge, but to basically add our own stamp to it, essentially to talk about some additional considerations that we want to take into account. So even when we take on AI projects, we really want to try to be as thoughtful and responsible as we possibly can, baking in ethical and fairness considerations from the get-go. And Jeffrey, whom I mentioned, he brought this great paper that was published earlier this year by some researchers from the Partnership for AI and Google. And so this algorithmic auditing framework has been very, very useful. So this summary figure from that paper talks about an overall auditing framework that ranges from scoping to mapping, artifact collection, testing, and reflection. And then, of course, there's a post-audit phase as well. And you see these various elements here that go into the framework. There are some parts, and principally the parts you see in orange there, that are intended to be actually documents that are produced by internal auditors. Now, at Kung Fu AI, as small as we are, we don't have the bandwidth of the budget to essentially to hire a full-time set of auditors to do that. But what we're trying to do is really refine and adapt and incorporate as much as possible out of this valuable framework into the work that we do when we take on AI projects. So there are a couple examples that I wanted to highlight here for you. One is the idea of model cards, that is actually trying to document information about how AI models were built, what assumptions were made, what kind of model behavior could be expected by different cultural, demographic, or racial groups. Also, there's the idea of data sheets. So when you use a data set for training, how was the data collected? Was there an ethical review process? And do the data sets relate to people? So we are fortunate enough, beyond the pro bono work that I mentioned earlier, one of our paid contracts is actually through the DARPA's D3M, or data-driven discovery of models program, which is an automated or auto ML program. Our focus areas there are related to remote sensing research, so basically be able to analyze multispectral satellite imagery. So some use cases there range from locust detection, so that's to try to prevent famines because of food security, damage assessment for natural disasters and or climate change. And then we also have a lot of work in time series, and one of the potential application areas there is disease prediction. And so as part of a way of trying to put this accountability and auditing framework into practice, Jeffrey actually put together this data sheet that's linked there. So when you get to the slides, if you're interested, you can actually review the data sheet. So it just goes into the details around how the data set was collected as far as we know, even though we did not create the data set. And I know we don't have too much time, but I did want to give you just a little brief introduction to disinformation research. So I've used techniques from network graph analysis, complexity theory, and natural language processing. I've been doing that for, oh gosh, many years, right? At least 10 years. But during 2020, my focus areas have been COVID-19, during the summer, the Black Lives Matter, as well as recently the elections. Because the time tonight is very brief, so when you get the slides, if you're interested, I actually provided links to both the video and the slides for a full hour-long talk that I gave back in May about identifying viral bots and cyborgs. But just very briefly, when I looked at tweets related to COVID-19, I found just obviously thousands and thousands of automated accounts, many claiming that coronavirus is fake or news or a hoax. There were some accounts leaking primarily to Russian websites. And then there were ones that are trying to promote online services, or in some cases, actually just promoting mainstream news websites. So that's potentially a positive action there. And then I also found that there were automated accounts focused on specific topics or people. So for example, Dr. Tedros of the WHO, as well as Dr. Fauci, both were areas of concern for these accounts. So for example, this shows you some examples of, there were 92 accounts that are supportive of Dr. Tedros and the WHO, more than that, 160 that were critical. And so these are just some of the typical tweets that were promoted by the pro and anti-Tedros sides. I like to use, there's a great website called Polynode that you can publish network graph analysis findings on. And so this kind of shows you just one of the visualizations that's available there. Interestingly, here you can see a tight cluster down at the bottom of anti-Tedros ones that is actually, if you look carefully, it says Senator McSally from Arizona. So basically, lots of these anti-Tedros accounts were associated and centered around that former senator from Arizona, or outgoing, I should say. And then what we typically see is then these sides, regardless of what individual issue that you're looking at, we see that these automated accounts vie for dominance. And we can actually look over time to see on what dates both sides are more and less successful. So the key idea is obviously not, is to basically just bring awareness to human users, to make them aware that of the actions of these automated accounts, because as we know, there's been a huge human cost to misinformation in terms of COVID-19, and I was really hoping to do my part to combat that. Basically, data.world. We've shared a subset of our data there. I also want to give a shout out. I'm proud to be on the board of technical advisors. Data.world has released a bunch of COVID-19 research resources. So I highly encourage everyone any who's interested to look at those resources and explore how you could potentially provide value by using those resources. And I know it was kind of a whirlwind trip through these things, but as I said, there are just multiple opportunities to collaborate in terms of Twitter disinformation, COVID-19, action works. We're happy to accept machine learning volunteers, and of course for all of the work that we're doing with Measure and Houston Tillotson. So if you're interested, please reach out to info@kungfu.ai, and thank you everyone for your attention. I look forward to talking more during the Q&A section. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Dr. Steve Kramer. I actually already had people pinging me wanting to work for Kung Fu AI. So I expect some things following up. So thank you so much. So we went from tech company using AI, and now we get to highlight what one person can do using technology, building an app to help solve social issues in their community. So I'm really excited to have Ryan Alexander Thomas join us, who will also be our musical guest shortly too, getting to wear multiple hats and speaking about the app that he built at Humanity. So thank you, Ryan Alexander Thomas.
Thank you, Jessica, and Jay, thank you for having me. Yeah, I will play if my wife allows it. She tells me to stop playing the instruments for my Zoom guests, so we'll see how that goes.
Fair enough, fair enough.
All right, let me share my screen here. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, solid. So good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Alexander Thomas. I am the co-founder and CEO of Humanity. We have created a social marketplace. This is a platform for organizing and coordinating community building. But our company didn't always start out this way, and we didn't always do this. So we're going to walk you through a little bit of what we do, who we are, why we do it, and of course, how this can affect you, how you can get involved in doing something like this, and how you can become more aware of some of the inefficiencies in some of the pipelines that we're going to talk about. So I met my co-founder at The Ohio State University. Before I got into computer science, before I got into big data and all that, I was a music teacher at St. Teresa Catholic School in Houston, Texas. I also taught a little bit at Briar Grove Elementary, Poe Elementary, and a few others. Music was my passion, still is, but over time I wanted to help more and more people. That led me down several different paths of trying to make music education applications, eventually worked for MIT as a programmer, and eventually made my way to The Ohio State University studying computer science and engineering. And that's where I met my co-founder. We worked on several projects for Mayo Clinic, the Department of Defense, and others, focusing on topic modeling and disambiguation. So we took a lot of information, millions of lines of data, and provided actionable insights for everything that people were looking at, so that business leaders, organization leaders, and decision makers could make better decisions. People don't like looking at a bunch of rows of information. They want some sort of bar graph that says, hey, tell me what to do, tell me to invest here. So we provided that. Eventually, we noticed how some of the contracts we got, they didn't all have a social impact that was good, as our friends earlier just mentioned. And some of them actually were kind of morally gray. I'll leave it at that. And we wanted to take our insights to a sector that could definitely use it. And this is around the time that 2017 Hurricane Harvey hit. And being from Houston, I saw what it did to my friends, my family. I had colleagues that lost their homes. And looking at the courage and the resilience that the city of Houston, nearby cities, and Austin was affected, of course, New Orleans and Beaumont and others, but you saw this great passion and wanting to come together and helping, and it was amazing to see what people could do. But unfortunately, with all the good that was done, there are still people to this day that still have received zero help from her, post Hurricane Harvey. You had people whose GoFundMe's were oversubscribed 10,000%. And then you had people who couldn't afford to remove the mold inside of their home. It deemed unlivable. And now, they've been evicted. And we were curious as data scientists how we could utilize the information available to us to make sure that more people got the help that they needed. And we built a couple of projects donation management system, volunteer management system, eventually led us to discover that the connecting needs and resources is really the most difficult part of community resilience. And we built a project, a small pilot for the ION Smart City Accelerator. They accepted us into their cohort in December or September of 2019. And we had a pilot project that we were planning with the city of Houston that was going to launch in July of 2020. But as everyone knows, in March of 2020, COVID became a reality for a lot of people. And that led us to sort of put a pause on the things that we were going to do, which is working with the coalitions, for homeless, for housing, for financial assistance. Everybody's like, okay, the money that we have for all these projects, we're going to have to put towards, providing emergency resources. And then something interesting happened is, roughly a week later after, our funding was pulled, we got a few phone calls from some individuals and organizations in the city of Houston. They said, hey, you guys are the needs and resources guys, right? And we're like, yeah, that's us. And they're saying, hey, we're having kind of a problem here. People are people need a lot of things. I don't have to tell anybody here how much COVID disrupted so many people's lives, where the biggest thing is that, contact tracing became very important to a lot of communities. And this is a side project we started to work on with, working with some individuals building contact tracing software. But the general problem with a lot of quarantining and contact tracing is that we're not bad at contact tracing. The fact of the matter is we're really bad at following medical guidelines. You see, if the whole point of contact tracing is to make sure that if someone is infectious, then we need to find out who they may have come in contact with during their infectious period and tell them, hey, you got to stay home before you infect somebody else. That's how it generally works. But that person can't stay home when they need to go to the grocery store, when they have kids they need to take care of, when they're taking care of somebody else. So people don't have the autonomy to stay home. And the community was providing these essentially pieces of paper, in several different areas. This is actually one we found with one of this Baptist church. And basically it's the 6 things that people are asking for: groceries, toiletries, medicine, unemployment assistance, the same things over and over. And so they said, hey, can you guys help us with this? Can you guys help us provide a way for people to connect our needs and resources? And the reason they reached out to us is because the biggest thing that they're doing is everyone wants to help. And this is something that Christy Brandon, our director of marketing and business development, she came up with, saying that essentially community building, a lot of it is like playing telephone, where one organization will say, hey, we have 10,000 people who need this. They will then tell another organization, we need 10,000 of this. That organization says, okay, we're trying to raise 10,000. We need to get 4,000 from here, and maybe we'll do 6,000 from here. Let's get a reserve 3,000. Those organizations then reach out to others saying, hey, we need this, we need that, we need this. But all the while, you have organizations donating to different people within the pipeline. So by the end, when people actually receive the resources, everyone thinks that they're operating in this efficient silo, where I'm a hospital, I'm your neighbor, I'm a local business, I'm a church, whatever it may be. I know that there's somebody that needs, you said you need 10,000 of this. Perfect. Let's get that to you. We got it. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. People are communicating all throughout the pipeline, trying to see who's doing what, where everything is. And because 90% of this community engagement occurs via phone calls, emails, and sometimes even guesswork, you have half of in-kind donated goods going to waste. So when people said, hey, we want everyone to know where we need diapers, where we need medical assistance, where we need unemployment assistance, where we need marriage counseling. We've had people reach out to us for all sorts of things. We actually rebuilt our platform from the ground up. Instead of being simply a volunteer and donation management tool, we turned our platform within 2 months into a solution for community building that did 3 main things. 1, centralizing the needs and resources within a community. 2, automated the coordination between who has what you need and who needs what you have. And then finally provided those real-time actionable insights, so that if one person says, hey, I need 5 cases of water for these people that I'm taking care of. If somebody donates 3, well, now this person only needs 2 cases of water, so that anyone who is helping anybody at any time can stay up to date. And by doing that, we reduce those inefficiencies by over 90%. Simply centralizing and optimizing the communication and coordination, it does wonders for the productivity in a community, especially when it comes to making sure people have what they need. So how does all this work? Well, simply a community is created. This is a sample community here. Basically, you can see a few details about it. You can see what resources are available, who created the community, their goals, what people are trying to do. Essentially, hey, this is a place so that no matter what you're doing within the community, you can see what people are working on, what is needed. When you want to start a toy drive, you say, oh, is anybody already working on this? Where could I find toys? How do I let people know how many toys we need? Working with the homeless organizations, how many toothbrushes do you need? How many beds do you need? All of these different facets of community building and philanthropy often occur through people's Facebook pages, GoFundMe's, Twitter, Instagram. And what we've done is we found a way to digitize the community building process so that there's no more guesswork involved. Now it is a streamlined pipeline so that no matter what you are, what you have, and who you want to help, well, there's a community for you that could definitely use what you're doing. And simply, once you do this, there's just track what needs to be done and assign tasks and satisfy the needs of the community. We're also able to calculate the economic impact of everything that's happening. But most importantly, some of our partners have seen an increase in the rate of receiving relevant resources by 2 to 11,000%. Which is amazing. We're really thankful to be, actually have the opportunity to help so many people doing so many great things. So it's very simple. What we've done is we've created a platform where a community leader says, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. They simply find the sponsors within the community, whether it's a nonprofit, a restaurant, or a business. These are all these resources that can be provided. I mean, a resource is anything from toiletries to mentoring to providing counseling for sexual abuse. It could be providing food, hot and cold, prepared meals or non-prepared, non-perishable foods. And then once they have that, we onboard the rest of the community, whether it is those in need, people who want to give, people who want to help, people who need help, key skills, certifications. You're basically filling out the rest of the community. And we're really, really excited about all of this. 2 of our initial partners when we first launched was Mayor of Hyattsville, Maryland. She reached out, found out about what we were doing through, I believe, an Exeter network, and just said, hey, can we use your platform, let people know what restaurants are open and what the restaurants need in order to stay open. We're working on a similar project with some people in Houston on providing local businesses with what they need in order to meet guidelines to stay open. Often people don't think about that. There's organizations that would love to comply, love to stay open, but a lot of Black and brown businesses can't afford to keep their restaurants open. They can't afford the plexiglass. So we're working with some folks to make sure that they have those. Another one, a key partner was Bread of Life. Shout out to Pastor Rudy for believing in us. He was actually one of our first pilot organizations, and we're really thankful to have worked with him, see some of the amazing work that he's done, and working with Mayor Pro Tem Martin in the city of Houston to distribute, let people know what's available, bringing in those resources, making sure people have everything that they need there. And again, some of the other organizations that we've been working with, interestingly enough, we are now working with the Biomimicry Design Alliance in Denver, Colorado. They're looking to create a closed loop ecosystem so that organizations can ensure that the nonprofits, research facilities, and restaurants who have excess waste can actually be repurposed by a lot of organizations that are using this to further their research in biomimicry. So it's interesting to see how we're now a principal investigator on a waste reduction grant. So this is interesting there, but we're really excited to be working with those individuals as well. And yeah, I'm really thankful that we've been able to grow our business, making sure that people are able to do the great work that they're already doing. Community building has been a passion of mine, other than music, and even with music. I love bringing people together around common causes. And 2020, for everything that it has taught us, as a company, me as an individual, and a lot of the partners that I've worked with is that we know we are much stronger together. There's really nothing that we can't do if we work together. And looking at the technology that we have available today, it's about time that we start utilizing it for good, ensuring that we are getting the most out of everything. And yeah, I'll leave you guys with just a few points. Just again, who we are. We're just a team of data scientists, community organizers, and educators. We learned over the years that building community resilience is it's very hard. People don't always get it right, but we are making tools and technology to strengthen that. We've created this marketplace for organizing and mobilizing community building. And I'd love for everybody to consider how your organization can build community resilience through digitizing inefficient pipelines or creating new partnerships. I'll share my information in the chat, but I'd love to speak with anybody about how our company could help you do some of those amazing things that you're doing, or if you're looking to create a partnership or join an existing community, or even create your own community. I'd love to walk everyone through this process. And yeah, Jessica, Jay, I will turn it back over to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I was also already thinking of the people that I'm like, ooh, I want them to learn about this app. I'm going to send you some intro emails. I really love what you're doing. I was texting with a friend of mine who's also on this call about, she's like, I've had this idea. I'm so excited that somebody's running with it and making it happen. That looks beautiful. And as a community organizer myself, I know how hard it is to organize communities. So I especially appreciate that piece. So thank you so much. Please make sure if you have questions for our wonderful speakers, put them in the Q&A. You'll probably have an opportunity to come have your pretty face on screen, like right next to one of ours, and get to ask your question too at the end. So we have some good questions coming in. Would love to see more. And so for our final speaker of the night, we have Nehemiah Pitts III. I'm really excited about this. Being with the Austin Forum on Technology and Society throughout the pandemic, people have been talking to us and bringing up, about the digital divide and what it's such a huge issue. And shout out to Austin Pathways. I'm sure you'll give them a shout out, but they're one of our partners too. Somebody asked at the beginning, wait, where's the slide on donating? We will talk about that. But we're really excited to have Nehemiah Pitts come and speak about bridging the digital divide, because that has been a huge, the pandemic has really highlighted that issue. So thank you so much, Nehemiah.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak and to be here today. As mentioned, my name is Nehemiah Pitts III, and I chair the Community Technology and Telecommunications Commission here for the City of Austin. Delighted to be appointed by two council members, initially Councilmember Orr Houston, and then after Councilmember Orr Houston's retirement, Councilmember Natasha Harper Madison for the role. And since serving in 2000 and for the past 4-5 years now, 2013, I've been honored to have been reelected as chair of the commission, serving this leadership role, where we are keenly focused on the digital divide and digital inclusion as a function of our mission. I'd like to share some slides that speak to the mission, but before I do, I'd like to mainly just thank everyone for being here today as part of this conversation and all of the content that's been shared so far. There's a whole host of information and knowledge, as you can tell, amongst these speakers that they're bringing to bear. And I'm looking forward to having one-on-one conversations with all of them about ways that we can leverage these insights and programs that different people are doing. With that, let me go ahead and share a little content.
Nehemiah, did you freeze? I think you might have frozen.
A function of our efforts here.
Nehemiah, I'm going to interrupt. Sorry, I think you just froze because I just heard you, but then I didn't hear anything before that. It seems frozen on this it says it's starting screen share. So you might want to screen share again or close out of it and then try screen share again and start over. Sorry, apologies. I just want to make sure I get to hear everything that you say. Uh-oh.
Yeah, Nehemiah, we're getting this screen that says you've started screen sharing, but it hasn't actually started yet.
And he's looking in one direction, so I'm thinking it's frozen. Remember that time, Jay, when our website went down right before we had the awesome forum on technology and society and our technology went down? That's always really awesome. And technology doesn't work for us.
Thanks for reminding me of that. Yeah.
I thought so. Well, to humor everybody and make small talk during this awkward pause. I think he will probably come right back on. We will give it one more moment. I'm going to check my emails to make sure nothing comes in.
Everybody, thanks for bearing with us. We got through 3 out of the 4 speakers. We hope Nehemiah will be back in a second. Otherwise, we will move to Q&A and then bring him back in when we can. We have a few closing slides before Q&A as well.
They are great ones. Yay! Project Schoolhouse on it. I'm a Project Schoolhouse.
Jessica, why don't we jump to the closing slides, give Nehemiah a chance to get his system rebooted, because we just have a few minutes of that.
Yep, let's do that. Okay.
All right.
Sorry, let me.
So while we're waiting for Nehemiah to come back, I want to make sure and tell you about some of the great events that we have coming up. So we actually have 2 events this month. One of the many silver linings for us in moving online has been the ability to have 2 events in some months. And we're going to do that again on December 15th. We wanted to close the year with this wonderful feel-good event to inspire you, we hope, to have your tech company or organization create more social impact, or maybe create your own new company, tech company dedicated towards social impact. You've seen examples of all of that tonight. The other event is also a feel-good event in a different way. So we are very pleased to have my friend Eric Summa from Dell Technologies and an old friend, Sherry Grainer-Ray, a longtime expert in the gaming field, are going to present about the future of gaming technologies and applications. And lest you think that is just gaming for fun, it's also gaming for education, for workforce development, for training, and more. People are figuring out interesting ways to use these powerful gaming technologies, including augmented reality and virtual reality in all kinds of interesting ways. So we hope you'll join us for that. It'll be a really fun event about a sector that's absolutely exploding. And there will be fun networking afterwards. We're going to have a number of online gaming sessions and Twitch streams in case you just want to watch and ask questions. You can join in some of the Twitch streams. But if you want to join in, we will ramp people into the gaming sessions. And we're looking for volunteers for people that want to host gaming sessions in the networking part of that event.
And Jay, Nehemiah just joined us again.
Great. All right. We will finish the rest of the closing slides after Nehemiah. Nehemiah, take it away.
Okay. Now, on the outside chance that I have a problem right away,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask that if it happens again, I'm just not going to present these slides. I think I'm going to.
Totally. You do not need to present slides. We can always send them afterwards. If there's a concern, I would not worry about it.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and just dive in, because what I'd like to impart really as I deal with the digital divide is how important it is for us to remain focused on collaboration. I do have some great content that I want to share, so I'm going to speak to it, even though you won't be able to see it. The main thing that I began to discuss is how personal this is for me. My grandparents, 3 of 4 of them, before either of my parents were born, actually attended the Austin School for the Deaf, Dumb, and Blind, as it was called. Obviously, there was a large degree of a lack of understanding of the power of language, amongst other issues, but the amazing thing about that experience for them was that being disabled, being special needs, actually enabled my grandparents to receive a better education in a segregated school for special needs kids than they would have in any other public education system or dynamic. This goes back to our history in the city of Austin of intentional segregation and to legacies, institutional legacies that have impacted what we now manage today as citizens of this great world as the digital divide. The different things that are in place, whether they be digital redlining or physical redlining that prevents people from having access or getting the same degree of service delivery when it comes to things as others that don't look like them. Or if we're talking about the legacies, frankly, of our country managing a history of colonialism and slavery, which we've obviously grown out of and far exceeded when it comes to what they mean. But when it comes to those legacies and the impacts, as we have been painfully reminded throughout different things occurring throughout the year and in the past, there's persistent challenges as a result. I think what we've seen throughout the speakers today is a variety of ways that some of those legacy issues are being addressed, particularly in the wake of COVID-19, which has drawn a spotlight, a glaring spotlight on many of those issues for the affected communities. When we look at digital equity and inclusion, it's very important to understand, of course, that we're referring to a condition within which all communities and individuals have the information they need in order to thrive in a society from an information technology capacity needed for full participation in society and democracy and the economy. When we look at the impact of things like COVID-19, then we talk about how crisis glaringly exposes the challenges. The chasm that was first described earlier on by Jessica in infographic, or actually it was an animated graphic of a virtual canyon, is one that I was pleased to begin to address back in the early 2000s with my time at Apple, and actually introducing digital media to the world, and frankly getting people excited about project-based learning and how they could leverage that to create excitement in the classroom and make technology relevant for students, to make it actually meaningful from a learning capacity. And here we are now in a whole new crisis mode of having to leverage those same types of learnings and same types of insights in order to just be able to deliver education, in order to just be able to deliver medicine or medical services, in order to be able to provide, of course, teleworking. Although clearly anyone who's working with a computer in their day-to-day lives in the office is someone who's not impacted directly by the digital divide. The fact is, though, once they're put into a remote learning scenario or remote work scenario, there's a learning curve. We've all seen anecdotally, if not personally experienced, the challenges with remote communication, as I dropped off the call earlier and had to come back on. The change, of course, that we've seen is that as we've been able to cast the light on these issues, there's an increasing awareness of how important technology is when it comes to accessing devices, when it comes to accessing the internet, and when it comes to accessing the skills that are necessary to make the most of them all. This is in essence what we consider to be the three-legged stool of digital inclusion. It certainly extends beyond that, as digital inclusion is also necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to all kinds of essential services. One of the things I was hoping to show you today that I'm very proud of was the result of an effort by our digital empowerment community of Austin, which we call DECA, and a poster design contest, which was the collaboration of several of the DECA members, and an outreach to all Austin area students aged 10 through 18 to describe for them what digital equity meant to them. I've got a beautiful picture created by our first place winner in that contest, named Mira Patel, a 12-year-old student at Keeling Middle School, who in describing what digital equity meant to her, characterized it as this. To me, digital equity means tech adapted to fit different types of people's needs. Equity is different than giving everyone the same thing because everyone is different. This is an important call out by this young, incredible mind and astutely aware of what it means to achieve equity, with inclusion being the mechanism to get there. Because what equity does is it bears in mind the histories that I referred to earlier. It bears in mind the legacies that challenge affected groups, whether they are disabled populations, whether they're clearly ethnic groups that have been impacted by segregation and redlining, or if we're talking about elderly populations that also struggle with challenges of isolation. These are different things that in the wake of COVID-19, I'm very proud as a city that we've been fighting to address in an extremely collaborative manner with our community. And there are several examples of that I'd like to speak to. Again, I'll speak to them rather than to be able to address them in the slide, but we'll get into those. One of those that I'm most proud of is an effort that I led as the chair of the commission to hold a special conversation on digital equity, specifically focused on providing stakeholders a seat at the table to directly convene a conversation for them to share their persistent challenges with the digital divide and inclusion, but also the ways that they've been able to have service delivery continue through a variety of nonprofits and solutions to make things work in this changing time of having to deal with the new dynamic of remote engagement, remote service delivery, and frankly, participation in society. This was actually part of an ongoing effort of our commission, who is dedicated, as I mentioned, to digital inclusion, but also civic engagement with, of course, equity as a focus, and is reflected in the yearly administration of the City of Austin Grant for Technologies program, in direct coordination with the Telecommunications and Regulatory Affairs Office, who has been an instrumental partner in that effort in coordination with the Community Technology and Telecommunications Commission. On October 9th, what we did is we allowed Austin residents receiving services, convene them along with policymakers, community leaders, and local nonprofits, serving as a culmination of, frankly, a week of programming focused around digital inclusion to provide insights on what they were experiencing. How am I doing on time?
We got to wrap.
Okay, let me wrap it up with this, and hopefully I'll be able to show this slide in full for the group, but I want to cut to the ways that everyone can get involved, because what we speak to here is 5 key things. One is a mind shift focused on persistent work to achieve equitable outcomes and address challenges on an ongoing basis, as opposed to having an event focused or a tada, kind of a tada and an illumination type focused perspective, a mind shift towards perpetual change. Also, a dedicated focus on elevating the voices of the affected. That special conversation speaks to that as a way to do that, as well as DECA as a community. Getting plugged into DECA is one of those ways that I encourage everyone to get involved. And we actually have our next regularly scheduled call tomorrow at 2 p.m. and everyone will be given access to that link to be able to get involved in that call. And then 2 last things. With the Grant for Technology Opportunities program, I want to encourage anyone out there that is passionate about these topics to be involved as a volunteer grant reviewer. We're very proud to administer a $400,000 grant for nonprofit organizations focused on these efforts, but it's all about collaborating with for-profit, nonprofit, and community entities to make that happen. And then, very much like it's been delivered today, generating and sharing resources to aid in digital service delivery in this trying time.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for, and I see Sherry Greenberg, one of our board members, thanking you. Thank you. This is really important work. Rocky saying, oh, would love to help with the grant reviewing. So fantastic. Well, let me bring everybody back on too, because I know that we want to make sure to have some time for Q&A. Jay, how do you want to proceed in terms of slides?
Let's finish our closing slides real quick and then take our short little break.
Okay. So everybody stick around because we're closing slides with really important information. Sorry, everybody, I told you to get on the slide and then just kidding. Give me a minute. Stick around and you'll get to talk to our speakers too, which is the most fun. Hold on, please hold while I get our slides ready. Close the deck accidentally. Okay.
There were some questions in the Q&A. Did those get answered during the event?
Those were getting answered. I was watching those get answered. They were very specific. We can go to them, but they were very specific to people.
All righty. Well, we just want to remind you about the events coming up. I already talked about the very fun-oriented gaming event, although it's about more than just entertainment on December 15th. There'll be some prize giveaways in that too, gaming-related technology giveaways in that for people that ask questions. So hope you'll make that fun event. On January 5th, my buddy Jay Williams and I will do our, I don't know, 4th or 5th annual Tech Trends event for the year. We always have a lot of people come to this. Sometimes we bring special guests in as speakers as well. I hope you'll attend that event. It's a great way to kick off the year. Then in February, we're going to do another double event month. We've got Tech and Relationships on February 2nd, and that's tech and all kinds of relationships, from what you might be thinking of with dating apps to how you can sustain professional relationships to how you can find support groups for rare conditions and scenarios that maybe you don't know anybody in your daily life that has the same experience, but around the world there might be. So there's lots of interesting ways that technology can actually help relationships. We'll also do tech and food in February. We've been planning that event for a long time. Jessica and I have some wonderful contacts in that space, and we are setting up that event now. And then Fair and Transparent AI will be the featured event for March. And we've got a bunch of topics that we're scheduling for after that. We hope you'll join us for these. Next slide, Jess.
There. Okay, I know. I was doing it, Jay. Sometimes it's slow. Join us on Slack, just like we said. It's super easy. Go to the website, awesomeforum.org/Slack. Click the buttons, enter your emails, check your emails, enter again. Voila.
And again, we want to thank all of our partners. One of them actually presented tonight. I hope everybody realized that the partner in the top left, AMD, not only presented tonight, but is one of our annual partners that makes this event possible. And we thank Mike Ignatowski, the AMD rep, for putting us in touch with Justin, and he's put us in touch with other speakers before as well. You see a number of global tech giants on here, but you also see some really strong local companies on here that care about the community that we're building, that care about the interplay of technology and society. So thank you to all of them. We also try to make sure that they get involved in events throughout the year, contribute blog posts, contribute in podcasts, et cetera. So we'll make sure you leverage the expertise in these great companies as well.
I saw Brad Engler Advisory on today too, and Austin Energy. So thank you, Brad and Amy representing Austin Energy for joining us. And so we got to have Nehemiah talk about the digital divide. This is something that we encourage our members to help support, our community to help others get connected during COVID-19. Donate your devices to Austin Pathways. It is a huge issue, as you know. All you need to do is call the number or email info@Austin Pathways. They'll pick them up safely, refurbish, and deliver to residents. Super, super important.
And once again, we ask you to help us get the word out now that in 2021 in particular, we're going to try to go national. So we're developing a communications plan and an outreach plan to really bring these online events to much larger audiences. We had been very Austin focused, very in-person focused for most of our history. The last 7 or 8 months, we've really begun to reach out, much thanks to our partners at Galvanize in particular for helping us reach out to people in the cities in which they have lots of members. We're really going to try to double down on this in 2021, but it still all comes back to you all helping to share our news, our events, et cetera, via social media. So thank you very much for doing that, and please keep doing it.
Thank you. So, question before our question and answer. In the chat, I want to hear from everybody, all the people who are left. We have 70-something people still with us tonight. What was the most useful or meaningful thing you learned or heard tonight? So we had really amazing speakers talking about everything from what tech giant companies can do to get involved, to how we can use AI for good and to fight evil, to how to be a community, leverage technology to be a community builder, to bridging the digital divide and the issue of equity and technology, especially during the pandemic. So what was the most useful thing? And Jay will have to read it because I can't see anything in the chat. Sometimes it takes a while. I want to see these things, guys.
We saved these answers, by the way, and it can help influence our future programming either through this or through the Austin Smart City Alliance. So please enter in the chat window. Jem Kosen, I really dug the Humanity Distribution Marketplace. So did I, Jem, and I can see how that is so important. Looking forward to talking with Ryan after this about Austin and that. Justin Wallander, Kung Fu AI's disinformation work. Agree, that is one of the big challenges of this tech era, is the ability to disinform and misinform people. Gwen Jewis contributed at socialgood.us. We were working on a project similar to what Humanity has become, and recommended that Ryan get in touch with Ruben Cantu, a former advisory board member.
Ruben, yes, wonderful. Well, now this is the time where Jay is going to go traipse to the back right corner, and we're going to see if Ryan Alexander's wife will let Ryan Alexander play. It's totally okay. I am a big believer of happy wife, happy life. So if she says no, Ryan, I'm okay with that. But take 3 minutes right now, guys, and we're going to come back and we're going to have Q&A. This is really, it's a super short break, but an opportunity for people to stretch and then come in and dialogue with our panelists and speakers of the night. So Ryan Alexander, what's the chance we're going to get to hear a song during this short interlude? Here, you're like, please. You're still on mute.
I don't know about tonight.
Okay. I understand. Listen, if you gotta make her happy, you gotta make her happy. It's fine. I
don't plan on performing anything, but I would love to try to share this beautiful slide that includes the artwork from our poster design contest winner.
Very cool. I'll stop the share. Please share. See if you can share it.
Oh, I'm gonna try my best here.
Okay. Fantastic. Should be able to share.
Thank you, Courtney. Lots of nice comments for the speakers in the chat.
Yeah, everybody really enjoyed this, so that's wonderful. Well, I know.
Nima, if you can't share it, we are going to distribute this stuff too.
Okay, so I'm trying to share right now. So
there we go. It's up.
Oh, nice.
That is a beautiful poster.
That is really beautiful. Well done, Meera Patel.
Indeed, indeed. A worthy winner and amazing, really, as a reflection of both inclusion and equity.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That's awesome. That's really beautiful. I'm impressed. I'm not an artist. Well, there's Q&A. There was some Q&A that was already answered. Jay, I don't know if you have questions, but I'm open to, let's see, did some of these get answered already? If people are on the chat and still around for chat, to just do it through the chat button chat feature, Jay, since we have just a little bit. What are your thoughts, Jay?
Yeah, if people just put in the chat window that they've got a question they want to ask Jessica, we'll promote you. And I'll start with the first question. So Justin, a lot of our attendees come from large tech companies here in town. And I know that we are, a startup capital. We have lots of small and mid-sized companies, but increasingly we've got huge presence from, Dell and Apple and Facebook and Google and soon Tesla and AMD and Intel and NVIDIA and you name it. What would your top takeaway be for people at this event tonight as they go into the, virtual office tomorrow? What questions should they be asking about what their company is doing to leverage its resources and its capital and its talent to make a better impact in the world? What questions should they ask? Who should they go to? Is it to the HR department? Is it does all big companies now have a corporate and social responsibility department? How do they find this out and how do they suggest things?
That's a great question, Jay. I think first thing I would say is my mentor shared this. I loved it so much. He said, lead from where you stand. So you don't have to have CSR or sustainability in your title, right? You just need to have a passion for it. And so if you start there, then you get to the point where you raise your hand, right? And you speak up and you ask questions and you start that inquiry that you just led to. So to me, there's a prerequisite, which people need to really feel that anybody with a passion can speak up and bring this forward. The practically speaking, the challenge of how different organizations are structured around corporate responsibility is difficult, right? Because it just really varies with one company to the next. So I can't really point you in one group or one department. We're in public affairs. If a company is more in an operational sense, vertically integrated, like a Tesla or something like that, then there's probably going to be more on the EHS facilities operation side. So it kind of depends, but I think, asking around, you probably will get bounced around a few times to a few different people, but eventually you'll land somewhere. And I think that's a great way for people to start, showing interest in their passion. So if you want to get into this field and you don't know how, then that's exactly what we're talking about. You come up with an idea, you volunteered. Is there a green team? Can I start a green team? What are we doing in this space? And you ask questions, and it might open the next door, which might open the next door. And it might be a long winding road, but if I go back almost 10 years ago, I started working with AMD. I raised my hand and said, I think there needs to be a sustainability position. And, it was what's that? Let's talk about it. And it was a creative process and it's changed several times, but here I am. So I think just getting started, asking the questions, bringing passion, understanding the business, be passionate and realistic around the business and what those like, and bring them together to some kind of solution that helps the business and advances your passion. But I think it's always a good idea to get started, ask those questions, raise your hand.
Great, thanks. Ryan, I had a question for you as well. How long have you been at this, and are you finding it easier to grow this business during the pandemic because of the nature of the value you provide, or harder because of the challenges of being smaller and not having the built-in connections everywhere?
Sure. So we started this company as a project, again, roughly in 2017, because of Hurricane Harvey. Spent 2 years, again, doing what data scientists do, just putting out a lot of research together, building some small products. Didn't really have a formal platform until the end of 2019. Officially started the company Humanity Incorporated in February of 2020. And ironically, the pandemic has actually been a catalyst for growing, because again, people are now starting to realize that it's very difficult to just sit there on your hands waiting for the powers that be to provide us with a lot of the critical resources that we need, especially when everybody needs everything, all the time. So we've been working and growing fairly quickly because there's so many organizations and individuals that do need help. We actually have, for moments in time, we've stopped taking on new organizations because we can't keep up with that. So having some growing pains as a startup, but of course our team has expanded to accommodate this. And, we're looking forward to continuing to grow and continue helping people even post-pandemic.
Great. And I don't see any questions in the chat window yet, but I mean, I have my whiskey and I can ask questions all night. So while people are submitting their questions, I'm going to ask one more here. Nehemiah, would you say it's fair to say that there are really at least three kinds of things people need in some equitable fashion to close this digital divide? They need devices that can connect. And we partner with Austin Pathways. Jessica talked about that slide. We've been very good at collecting devices that then Austin Pathways repurposes to people in need. They also need bandwidth, though. They need the connection itself. And that one, I don't know how to contribute to. And I'd like you to tell our attendees how to contribute to it as well. And the third, and maybe there are others as well, is they might need help or training or support. So give someone a device and give them a network connection. It doesn't guarantee they will know how to use it and still have the same opportunities as someone who's tech savvy. So how can our attendees contribute to that bandwidth solution and to the training and support need?
Yeah, thank you for that, Jay. That was one of the things that I covered in my slides that I wasn't able to present. There are actually, thankfully, a few ways that people can contribute towards those solutions. When it comes to bandwidth and access to the internet, but in particular broadband, we're looking at a model wherein we're trying to encourage aggregate buying power to leverage bandwidth. And it's one where, in essence, collaboration then presents the opportunity. I'm very pleased to be aware of a collaboration led by HACA. You mentioned Austin Pathways, and there's other partners involved as well in a collaborative effort to essentially discuss this notion of purchasing power and how smaller organizations can then work together to then yield a larger purchase of access. And oftentimes it is a matter of purchasing hotspot devices and then distributing those with a community partner to be able to do so. The effort undertaken by AISD in collaboration with Austin Freenet and Ruckify is an example of that as well. There's of course a strong training component that factors into that, which is a bit more challenging now because of the fact that training labs themselves, for example, the Austin Freenet training lab is not open all the time, but it is open on an appointment by appointment basis. So we're still able to deliver training, hands-on training for devices and for technology, but it does require some finesse and scheduling to do. So I think really one of the best ways is to get involved in DECA, because there you can actually get hands-on information from the entities themselves about the different programs, where they speak to their needs and how they have a need for this particular type of training resource, or they have a need for X number of more devices to be able to provide access. And frankly, it's one of those scenarios where having just a single hotspot in a home may not do it, because you have a shared use scenario where you're dealing with a home that doesn't have internet access at all, and then they have multiple kids trying to work remotely in a school setting, creating the challenge then of bandwidth. And then they've also got the added challenge of having a household member that is less adept than they are, but yet at the same time is part of that dynamic too. So
Yeah.
there's a real need for hands-on. There's also a need for mentorship, frankly, that would provide higher level training in many cases, and social capital in an access scenario for work development. There's a variety of organizations that have programs that are focused on that as well. So those are some of the ways that I would encourage organizations to get involved, and or individuals.
So Nehemiah, we should probably offline put together a checklist of the different organizations people can contribute to, volunteer with, donate to, et cetera, because I want to make sure people can help solve this problem. I'm very proud of what the Austin Forum has done, and all of you, our participants, have done in terms of donating through Austin Pathways in the past 3 years, I guess now. That's been great, but I want to make sure people have access, they have bandwidth, and that's a monthly charge. And, you know, I could think of things that I pay for in my life, and I would be willing to round up the amount of money to contribute to Wi-Fi for families in need and things like that.
Well, yeah, and to be specific, there's actually a community resources page dedicated to this, where people can actually see a list of the providers and opportunities, both links to digital learning tools for individuals, as well as service provider discounted COVID-19 offerings, in addition to digital literacy curriculum resources, all accessible on this website. And the idea is to make it be a one-stop shop for uploading and accessing information.
I see there's questions for Steve, but he keeps answering be online to ask it.
I know, I was going to bring her
I'm
up.
sorry, I was like trying to multitask.
I'm going to do it
there.
anyways, Steve.
And-
That's my favorite part of the whole show, is bringing people on stage so she can ask. I don't know if but then I might put her on the spot. She might be like, I don't have my questions anymore. She's going to love this.
When at a comment, she said, Jay, isn't that what humanity is doing? I think you're referring to the question I asked Nehemiah, but I don't think, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, humanity is solving the problem of paying for the persistent network access things for people in need, are they? I didn't get that if humanity's solving that one.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? You're saying paying for the access to the network of resource distribution?
No, paying for the actual broadband connectivity for people in need.
Oh, no. So we don't we don't pay for the resources. Now we
Right.
do create some donation for some organizations sometimes, but it's not we're not a nonprofit. We create
Right.
technology, we create the marketplace that allows people to, of course, receive funding via the platform, providing the crowdsourced tools so that they can, of course, receive donations, in-app payments, and making of course those connections. But as far as us, our organization itself, we write a grant here and there, but that is not our business model to provide those types of resources.
Right, got it, yeah.
So I just dropped that link into the chat for that site. It again gives the opportunity for any organization to provide updates on their general resources. It's a very nice list of affordable internet access resources and or discount low affordable cost access resources for broadband.
Thank you. I know I brought, because my favorite thing is to bring people on stage. So I brought Rocky on stage because I know she just had a question. And so figured you get to ask it again so everybody can hear it. So everybody.
Well, Steve already answered it because he's very fast, but my question was about the sentiment analysis library that they were using and how it deals with colloquialisms and other languages too.
Yeah, so just to close the loop on that, thanks for the question. So that Luke tool is a simpler kind of bag of words approach where you basically it counts up words in those various categories. Now it's pretty sophisticated in that I think it's on the order of 30 or 40 different categories. They've certainly expanded, so it's not just positive and negative. It's like anger, anxiety, uncertainty. So there are definitely some subtleties you can get out of that. But in terms of being able to like understand more of the colloquialism, I think that's where you definitely have to get to using a deep learning model that really takes into account the sequence of words that can really tease apart the more subtle kind of variations there. So I added the link to, we do have as one of our AI demos that we have online on Concrete AI. You can check that out, play around with it. I believe that one is physically for English. The other thing that just to tie it back to the whole ethics and fairness question is that we certainly know that a lot of the out of the box language models are biased because they've been trained on so much of the internet, which we know is inherently biased. So both in terms of sexism as well as racism and other kinds of biases. So it's definitely an ongoing challenge to try to mitigate the biased nature of a lot of those language models. So just a thing to keep in mind, just don't go using, well, you can see a lot of the articles around what happens if you turn GPT-2 or 3 bots unleashed on Reddit, and they get very mean very fast.
Totally, thanks.
You bet. Thanks.
I have a question for Steve.
Sure.
Yeah, Steve, so I was really curious to get your feedback on or thoughts around how intentionality and really cultural focus when it comes to AI plays a role. Let's speak in particular with the notion of garbage in, garbage out, and how it's important if we're trying to leverage something for a cultural insight from an AI standpoint that the person writing the code be culturally informed.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true. And if you look at the paper that I linked in the presentation, which will get shared, that one around the algorithmic auditing framework, they actually talk about how it's important, even within the product and development teams, to have as diverse a group as possible, because we all come with our own inherent biases and cultural backgrounds, and it can be hard to predict negative outcomes in advance if you don't have a really broad set of internal stakeholders, as well as ideally, external experts that you try to go out to and essentially try to interview people in the communities that could be affected by an AI model or a tool. So yeah, that's a great point, Nehemiah. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. I wish that I had a chance during the presentation to share on my slide more insights on that, because one of the things that was important when it came to facilitating that conversation in the community was to bring disparate and typically unheard of voices to the table. So I reached out to the School for the Deaf, I reached out to the School for the Visually Impaired, in addition to being able to, of course, leverage insights from HACA, from Austin Pathways, affiliated organizations, from Mission Capital and others that were, focused in the community on equity and inclusion.
That's great.
Well, it's just a little after 8 o'clock. So thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. Thank you, Nehemiah, Ryan Alexander, Dr. Steve Kramer, Justin Morel, Jay Boisseau, who made this all possible. There was a lot of great info. There was a lot of positive feedback already in the chat. Thank you guys so much for the work that you do too, and for sharing it with our audience and our community.
And Jessica, thank you for putting this together.
Yeah.
And I want to remind everybody of the 2 points you made in your opening comments about thinking about, say it.
Oh, that you told me to remember, for everybody who's left, be thinking about what is your potential and what is the legacy that you want to leave. I think that is something that we should always be looking at. I think we're always capable of doing bigger and greater things, and thinking about not just who we are, but the legacy that's going to be left behind from us. So you guys are really inspiring with the work that you're doing. And so I hope that we inspire even greater legacies because of this.
Yeah.